Women's Studies 101 deals with this essentialist notion of gender and dismisses it largely. That most of our gender behaviors and our gender attitudes and our even senses of ourselves as women come from innumerable messages from society, both the media and our parents and our friends and our schools, that kind of teach us what it means to be a woman. Masculinity hasn't had these conversations for women. They're 40 years old now, but masculinity hasn't really had these conversations. So you see masculinity, the successful male, over and over and over again being restricted to a certain kind of physical type. And that physical type is large, and it is muscular, and it is athletic, and it is not terribly smart, and it's not inventive, but it's physical power, athleticism primarily. Here is Mike Wazowski, the little small kid, smart kid, bookish kid, who literally has no friends. And not even his teacher wants to pair up with him. None of the other kids on the field trip will pair up with him. And this is funny. We're supposed to see this as funny and not cruel or inappropriate, but funny. And then he goes to college to live out his big dream, where he gets bullied by entire fraternities, by his soon-will-be best friend, and by the faculty members who tell him, by looking at his body, you will never be a success because you're too small and you're too weak and you're too brainy and you're not alpha enough, you're not hypermasculine enough. And the whole film is kind of about how he comes to terms with that. So it's not any sort of, I mean, what kind of a message is that to send kids? There are ways of seeing the Pixar protagonists as sort of wonderfully progressive. They are fatherly, they're domestic, they're warm, great characters on some level for boys to watch and admire and emulate. And then in other ways, they are often very hypermasculine, very traditionally masculine, very boys don't cry, very mean to each other in some ways, very observant of a kind of social hierarchy based on assumptions of gender that are not fair or healthy to many, many, many boys. Look at Dash, and now the whole plot tells him basically to sit down, shut up, don't call attention to yourself. And we thought, well, maybe there is a danger in trying to be the alpha male, and you lose a lot of potential happiness in life, insisting on that kind of celebrity identity and refusing to engage in a communal or domestic space. But surely there is also something lost in little children being told that they can't stand out, that they can't come in first, that they shouldn't try to be ambitious, that they should sit down and shut up. We've got this whole stripe of villains.
Yeah, who are not necessarily villainous, like Sid Phillips in Toy Story and Toy Story 3, where he's just kind of a rambunctious but probably really bright kid. And he's not doing anything wrong per se. He's, you know, he's taking toys apart and things like that, but the conceit of the movie is that human beings don't...
He's a sociopath, right.
Yeah, but yeah, and the conceit of the movie is that human beings don't know that toys actually have any kind of life outside of an inert object. And so him taking heads off and blowing stuff up is just a kid blowing toys up. He has no realization, at least until the end, in that Exorcist-like scene where the toys come alive for him, and you know, what a horrible, horrible shock.
And if you imagine Sid as an inventor instead of as a sociopath, then he becomes the kid whose strengths and talents lie in an alternative masculine identity. Disney critics have said this for a long time, but they are such a powerhouse. They're such a powerhouse. They've got just incredible influence over establishing cultural norms for kids. And they're not the only ones, obviously. Everybody in all of society contributes to establishing culture for kids, but they are a big, powerful ideological force. And it is animation. So there is opportunity and potential for them to rewrite some of these scripts. They don't have to make Sid the hero of the film, but they could make Sid anything. The subject of the Disney princesses and their retrograde representations of women is now ubiquitous. People know how to talk about this. Little girls know how to talk about this. And the Disney studios finally are slowly responding by broadening a little bit their representations of girls. The conversation, a parallel conversation for boys, hasn't started. And we're trying to start it. We're trying to contribute to it, so that people become aware of what they are watching and what their kids are watching. We can all become more aware.